Almost everything that you think is important is actually irrelevant in the big picture, created by the fact that Google is now creating Terminator robots. Boston Dynamics, the company that was purchased by Google, has just released Atlas, the so-called next generation of Android robots. This video was released February 23rd, 2016. And it shows this Atlas robot, a humanoid robot, self-contained, no tethers, no external power, no gasoline engines, nothing. It's all self-contained. Shows this robot walking outside a building, opening the door, walking through a forest in the snow, staying balanced, recovering from stumbling on ice and snow. And then they show it back in a warehouse, picking up boxes, moving boxes around, and then one of the engineers shoves the robot backwards. The robot regains its balance and comes back to pick up the box. And in another scene, an engineer shoves the robot to the floor. The robot gets back up. And you can just hear the Terminator music in the background. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, this is full-on Terminator. And let's dispense with any of the silly, childish gullibility of people who think, these robots are only for peaceful purposes. No, they're not. If you think that robots are being developed by Boston Dynamics for peaceful purposes, then you think the space program was created for peace as well. No, it wasn't. You think government sent man to the moon just to explore the space? No, it was to establish dominance in space. Remember, outer space is the high ground. The orbital satellites are the high ground. They are the spy cameras. They are the weapon delivery systems. They are the missile launch detection systems. The moon is the ultimate high ground, and the moon is where every nation eventually wants to build an assault weapons base to launch kinetic weapons off the moon and to target cities or targets anywhere on planet Earth. So if you think the space program was about peace, you're living in a childhood fairy tale fantasy land. And if you think humanoid robots are being built so they can walk your dog and give you a better life, then you're delusional. These are being built to build Terminator armies, to arm them with fully automatic weapons. Google already, these are almost Terminator soldiers right now. They can walk around, they can track you down, they have thermal imaging camera capability, they can spot humans by their heat emissions, they can see through walls with the same kind of technology that police are using now. Just by adding modules, they can do these kinds of things. They are self-contained. They are not quite bulletproof yet, but certainly bullet resistant compared to human beings. For example, these Atlas humanoid robots don't bleed, right? And they don't. You can't attack them psychologically. They don't get demoralized. They just keep coming. What's the line from the original Terminator movie? It absolutely will not stop until it finds you and kills you, something like that. That was Reese talking to Sarah Connor. So these are being constructed, have no illusions, constructed to build a Terminator army, and Google will be in charge of that army. I want you to think about the kind of dystopian future that we are hurtling towards because of Google already has created, this massive spy and surveillance network to monitor your psychology. Every search engine, every search term that you type into their search engine, every web page that you visit, because almost all of them have Google tracking or Google ads or things like that. They can track your email through Gmail. They can track your Android phone usage, your Chrome browser usage. And soon they will own a private army of Terminator robots that they can send into battle or that the government could send into battle could be used to attack citizens, to attack uprisings, to attack ranchers in Oregon, for that matter, could be used to commit heinous crimes against humanity. And even if you don't believe that could happen, what about the possibility of these robots being taken over through cyber attacks, through malicious code hacks? What if a foreign enemy of America got its hands on the control systems of these Terminator robots? What if China took control and then unleashed all these robots against, I don't know, members of Congress or something? Well, wait a minute. Let me get a better example. Some of you might actually cheer that. So what if they unleash them against just innocent civilians across America? You know, that's a possibility. It is a dangerous world where these humanoid robots exist and are controlled by entities that are already power hungry, depopulation proponents who hate humanity, who hate freedom, who already operate like a police state totalitarian regime, which is Google. And to think that they're going to have this technology now, these humanoid Terminator robots that can be armed and unleashed against the people, that's pretty frightening. Now, dismiss all that for a minute. Suppose you think, no, that's crazy. Well, you're probably the person who thought 10 years ago that it was a crazy idea that the government was listening to your phone calls or monitoring your emails. Of course, now we know that's all true thanks to Edward Snowden. So maybe you need to get on board, up to speed. Let me choose the right metaphor. Get on board with reality here. This is coming. These are being built to be killing machines. Have no illusions about it. Make no mistake. But even if you don't believe that, even if you think it's only about taking over all the jobs that people don't want to do, then let's talk about the economic consequences here. The economic consequences of the mass deployment of humanoid robots to take over all the factory jobs, the fast food jobs, the manufacturing, the commercial cleaning jobs, security patrol jobs, all of these, driving trucks down the highway, these kinds of jobs, all of these millions of jobs in the economy that could be very rapidly and very easily taken over by these robots would cause mass unemployment, widespread revolts across the population. What happens in an economy when you have 40% unemployment? Because remember, we're at about 20% unemployment right now. Don't believe the government numbers. They're lying to you, of course. We're at 20, maybe 22% right now. What if that doubles? Because now humanoid robots are taking over all of these jobs. You walk into a McDonald's and instead of a human being behind the counter, you get this humanoid robot asking you if you want fries with that. Now, at first, you might be amused. You might even be amazed. But then you realize, well, what happens in a society where 40% of the people are unemployed? Remember when all these fast food workers, they were marching in the streets and demanding a minimum wage of $15 an hour? And in some places, they got it. They got it in Oregon, Portland, I think, a very liberal city, voted for and passed a $15 an hour minimum wage. What happened immediately? Everybody lost their jobs. Benefits were cut. Hours were cut. Restaurants closed down. Why? Because all of these companies cannot afford to pay for whiny human workers who demand high pay but give low performance, low reliability, smoke weed on the job, and sexually harass their coworkers and then threaten to sue their employer. That is what is going to cause all of these companies to call up Boston Dynamics and say, hey, when can you get us humanoid robots that can flip burgers and serve fries and take cash from customers and sweep floors and clean toilets and do all of these things that these minimum wage workers refuse to do even though they want to get high pay for it. Believe me, that phone call is being made right now by every major corporation in America that's using low-wage labor, including in agriculture. What do you think is going to happen when millions of present-day low-wage workers who happen to be predominantly Latino or African-American or low-education white folks as well, what's going to happen to all those sectors of society when Google rolls out these humanoid worker robots that never call in sick, never quit without warning, never show up late, never harass the customers, never argue with the boss, never smoke weed on the job. They don't have piercings and tattoos and long hair, which employers hate. These robot workers are just what these companies want. So they're going to displace millions upon millions of jobs. And you're going to create a class of the mass, unemployed, homeless, impoverished humans who are no longer relevant in a society where humanoid robots have now made low-income workers obsolete. Do you not think that the social, cultural, and political implications of this massive change are not going to be game changers for the future of humankind? We already have some of the so-called leaders of the technology industry demanding the depopulation of humans. Bill Gates, in particular, says we got to depopulate the planet. We got to reduce humanity's numbers down drastically. And there are other people who argue that that number needs to be slashed by about 90% to get human population down to about 500 million people worldwide. You see, their vision of the future has about only 500 million people living around the world in relative wealth because they are served by all the humanoid robots that they created, see, that do the dishes and fold the clothes and mow the lawns and do the laundry and flip the burgers and do the fast food and do the mining and the trucking and the industrial operations, so that the few individuals who are left on this planet can live like kings because they are being served by all of these high-tech humanoid robots. But you know what? That vision of the future only works if they eliminate the other 6.5 billion people. They have to get rid of those people, which means you and me. And how are they going to do that? How are they going to get rid of 6.5 billion people that they no longer want to see on this planet because most of them are now obsolete thanks to the rise of these humanoid robots? How are they going to do that? I wonder. Could it involve using the robots to pick up weapons and just eliminate the humans? Or exterminate, terminate, as was said in the movie, and hence the name Terminators. My friends, this is not sci-fi anymore. And if you can't see this coming, you need to open your eyes. This is imminent. This is right around the corner. The era of low-wage human workers is about to come to an end. And believe me, the system of control in our world today only needs those low-wage workers, those laborers, only needs them for a few key reasons, none of which are going to exist in a couple more decades. They need those people to vote. They need those people to do the jobs that no one else is willing to do. And they need those people to create this massive underclass of dependent-minded, entitlement-minded people to create the feelings of suffering and compassion through which many political parties derive their power. But once the rise of the robots is complete, well, robots take over all the low-wage labor jobs, and then when you can't keep all these unemployed people around, they're going to protest, and hey, they might revolt. They might overthrow governments. They might call for reform. They might challenge the status quo. So obviously they have to be eliminated. So a couple of decades down the road, that's the picture. Mass depopulation by who knows what means exactly. But there are many ways that the globalists could accomplish that. Bill Gates is working on many of them. Infertility, mosquito vaccines, infertility shots covertly disguised as vaccine shots. That's already being tested in Africa and Mexico. The male infertility using ultrasound treatments of the male scrotum, that was also pioneered by Bill Gates' money. Of course, you've got the Ebola virus, and you've got the Zika virus, and you've got all these level 4 biohazard viral weapons of mass destruction that are being toyed with by various governments around the world, and who knows what all's happening with that. And you've got GMOs and messing around with the seed supply and the food supply. You've got mass chemical poisoning of the environment with glyphosate and atrazine and other toxic chemicals, herbicides and pesticides. You've got the destruction of the ecosystem, the complete destruction of the marine ecosystem, ocean fishery populations, for example. You've got the destruction of the rainforest in Brazil and other areas. You've got the loss of soils to grow food almost everywhere, massive soil erosion taking place, and the mass killing of the soils through the use of glyphosate and other agricultural chemicals. You've got weather radicalization kicking in, and so on and so forth. I mean, need I go on? Ocean acidification. You name a sector of our world, and I tell you, it is being systematically destroyed by the very same system that is giving rise to these Terminator robots and wants to eliminate human population. You see, you got to understand, these globalists, of which Google is a major part, these people don't see you as someone who can contribute to human civilization. They don't see you as an asset. They see you as a liability. In their minds, you're exhaling carbon dioxide. You're flushing your toilet and producing human waste. You're using up fresh water supplies that are limited. You're using oil and hydrocarbons to power your life. You're using up energy and fossil fuels. You are the problem in their minds. They already know that the plan is to eliminate you. But they can't do it yet. The robots are not quite ready yet. The robots have to be able to work in the warehouses and sweep the floors and clean the toilets. They've got to be able to do the police work, quell the crowds. They have to be able to use tasers and phasers and guns and firearms and rifles and sniper rounds and shotguns and handguns and lasers. And as soon as they get all that done, then it's on. Then you're screwed. They no longer have any need for you. Because a robot that can cook a batch of French fries, which is physically actually somewhat complex, has all the skills that are needed to point a pistol at your head and pull the trigger just as well. If it can push a fry button on a French fryer at McDonald's, it can pull the trigger on a Glock loaded with an anti-personnel round, jacketed hollow point, and get rid of you, thereby accomplishing their goals. You see, they don't really want to spy on you. They don't need to surveil you. They don't care about your boring, inconsequential life in their view. They don't need to spy on you. They want to eliminate you. They don't need you. The future doesn't need you. The future of industry doesn't need human laborers. The future of agriculture doesn't need biological beings picking strawberries in a field. All these futures are robotics. That is what they are rolling out. And in these futures, there is really no place for you and me and all the other humans who are not part of the global elite class, that secret club of human depopulation advocates who always love GMOs and mosquitoes and vaccines. Isn't it interesting? They always love the technologies of mass death and mass destruction. They love these automated android robots just as much as they love GMOs. Because they are merchants of death, their goal is the death of 90% of human population, and they are systematically, day by day, creating the technology that they need to carry out that mission. And they're not going to tell you that this is the plan. They're not going to issue a press release. Oh, by the way, today we announced the Atlas humanoid robot with the automatic weapons module available to government offices only, able to carry 2,000 rounds of 7.62 by 39 ammunition, able to target civilians at 800 yards. They're not going to issue a press release like that, but that's what they're working on. If you think they're not working on that, you're crazy. And by the way, robots can calculate long-range projectile ballistics far better than a human being in an instant. And they can shoot an AR-15 round out to 800 yards, and they can hit targets with it, even though you and I probably couldn't do that. But they can, because they can calculate the wind, the range, the ballistics, the spin drift, all of these things. I mean, I'm a long-range target shooter, so I know how to do this, but it is complicated math. We always have ballistics computers that we use to do that math. You don't just look in a scope and pull the trigger and hit something, 1,500 yards away with a 300 Win Mag or a 338 Lapua. No, you got to have a ballistics computer to do that. And guess who's got the computers built in? The Google robots. They are walking, talking computers. For them, a ballistics calculation is a split second, which means they can outrange all of the humans like you and me who might one day be fighting for our lives trying to kill these damn robots. And you're not going to be able to outrange them because, again, they can do the ballistics in their head. So this brings up the final chapter of this discussion, which is how is humanity going to kill these robots? And I think this is a very, very important topic, and probably somebody should start a website on this. We did an article called The Top 10 Ways to Kill a Google Robot. I think that's on glitch.news if you want to look for that. There are vulnerabilities in these robot systems, and humans who want to survive the robot apocalypse are going to have to learn how to target these vulnerabilities. So one great way to do this is to tie them up or tangle them in cables and nets and ropes and lines and things like that. My guess is these robots are going to be very, very bad at untangling themselves. They won't have the dexterity or the ability to sort out the tangling, which is actually complex mathematics, believe it or not. So if you can tangle up these robots in ropes and cables and so on, and then tie the other end of that cable to a pickup truck or something, and drag one of these things for the length of a football field over rocks and bumps and things, then that might be a good way to eliminate one of these systems. But then again, if you have a pickup truck, you just ram the damn thing, just run over it. That's a good way. Use your vehicles as weapons against these robots. Install some ballistic glass in your front windshield and turn your 2006 Dodge Ram into a robot Ram. See how much traction you can get with that. Okay, a couple other ideas on this. If you actually can hit these robots with firearms, they are likely to have vulnerabilities in their electronics, obviously. If you fracture an internal motherboard or a memory chip or even an electrical connection that powers one of the limbs, then you could disable the robot. Some of them at some point might use hydraulic fluid for the actuation of the limbs, and so you could target fluid pathways, which would appear to be basically hydraulic cables of some sort, although that's not likely to be the technology long term. They're going to be more like electronically actuated muscle fiber type of technology in these systems. Now, some other things you can do, you can blind the sensors. You could use, for example, green lasers, red lasers, or other lasers and try to blind their sensory system, which is always a good thing. You can use fire and explosives to target these if you're in like a Mad Max situation, total, the world's being taken over by Terminator robots, and you need to fight for humanity's survival. Find somebody who knows how to make a roadside explosive. What are they called? IEDs, and take out a couple of these Terminators that way. Watch the Terminator movie series for review and lessons. Okay, and let's see. There was one other key method here. You can also create traps for them. So robots like this are very unlikely to be able to make it through water, quicksand, punji pits, little pits that they crash through and they're stuck in the pit, or even things that it's difficult for them to navigate, like, how about a driveway coated with oil and then you throw a bunch of marbles on the driveway? Let's see them try to walk through that. So you got to think of ways to destabilize these systems, blind them, confuse them. If you're smart enough to build an EMP bomb, a little miniature EMP, you could, of course, detonate that and hope they don't have EMP shielding. You might be able to fry their electronics that way. That could be a real lifesaver. Mount that inside your van. Just drive down the road, recharge and blast, a line of Terminator robots falling behind you. And of course, finally, the ultimate solution is called the Barrett 50 cal 10-round semi-auto rifle system, which sadly is not that accurate because the barrel is mounted on springs to help with the recoil, which is quite significant. I know from firsthand experience. That's why those of us who are long-range shooters don't really like the 50 cal round. It's not very accurate. So to hit a robot with a 50 cal round is going to be kind of tough, even at relatively short ranges. I would rather choose a 338 Lapua, if you ask me. That would be my round of choice, where you could take out one of these android robots, at 1,000 yards pretty reliably, as long as it didn't find you first. And 338 Lapua would definitely deliver a devastating blow to a Google robot system. If I get a chance one day, maybe I'll buy one of these robots and see how we can destroy it, and then put that on the internet. That would be fascinating. I'm sure Google's also thinking about how to defend against all of these things, like little armor for the bot. Control the CPU and the RAM inside a ballistic chamber inside, give the robot the ability to have backup sensors, for example. Maybe teach the robot how to crawl if it can't keep its balance and it keeps falling. Teach it how to crawl out of something. Maybe give the robot an onboard knife that it can actuate to slice its way out of cables and strands and nets. If you throw a cargo net over it, maybe it can slice its way out of the cargo net. Wouldn't that be that'd be a fearsome sight? A Google robot with a Rambo knife in one hand and like an automatic weapon in the other. yeah, exactly. Get out the Dodge Ram for that guy. Just slam into it, So anyway, obviously some of this is in jest. I'm being a little bit comedic in the observations, in perhaps a George Carlin inspired kind of way. But the truth is that this era is fast approaching. It really is, where the robots are going to take over. And it's no longer science fiction to think that the robots might rise up and challenge humanity. And if that's the case, be prepared to fight for your survival alongside other human beings who look at each other and say, hey, we don't want to be obsolete. We don't want to be depopulated. We don't want to surrender to the Google Terminator robots who are taking our jobs and now are trying to take our lives. We think humanity has value and we'd like to stay alive. Thank you very much. All right, thanks for listening. My name's Mike Adams. the Health Ranger, but I also comment on technology where appropriate. You can check out my podcast at healthrangerreport.com. And one of my many websites is newstarget.com. So check out newstarget.com. Just a little background info, I'm also a lab science director at the Natural News Forensic Food Lab. We do ICP-MS elemental analysis of food contamination. Also, we have an entire organic chemistry section, so I'm a very technical-minded person. And I spend my days developing and applying physics and chemistry methodologies for the analysis of contaminants in food, water, and environmental samples. And I report that on naturalnews.com. I'm pretty sure that there's not a robot yet that can do that. All right, take care and stay alive. Click subscribe now to be alerted when I release new videos.